Good evening, YouTubers. Welcome to episode 18 of shrigleytubeTV. Thank you for returning and welcome to new viewers. I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. Starts off with a bit of a ramble about some starter motors, and then we get into a couple of 930 engines that are coming for rebuild, well not rebuild, sort of what can you do to help sort of situation. So we sort of put some cranks in them, but you have to watch the video to see what happened. And then we did a bit of a chat about some aluminium aqua blasting and just bits and bobs like that. At the very end, the best bit of course was we went to Bradford last night for the Brisca F1 stock cars, which was an absolutely mental meeting. I don't know if it was a full moon or something, but the F1s were, and the F2s to be fair, which I'm not normally a massive fan of. The F2s were good as well, but the F1s were crazy. And yeah, some big hits going in. There's a bit of the very end of this video tonight, there's a bit of an interesting one from Tom Harris on there, a chap called Lee Fairhurst. I think it may be a bit of payback from World Final night, but I couldn't understand why he took himself out when he was clearly the fastest man on track all night. So yeah, brilliant night's racing. Well done to all the stock car drivers, and thanks for the entertainment. Right, well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Good morning, YouTubers. It's Monday morning, back in the workshop, having had a lovely weekend. Hope you had too. Right, we're going to do something a bit different. Just going to talk about starter motors on Hillman Imps and the differences between the later type, which is what everyone fits nowadays, which is called a pre-engaged starter, and this one, which is the original, which is called an inertia starter. I've got an imp flywheel here that the ring gear had started to push off, so I'm going to explain why that happened and how we can get around it. It's very rare we see it, but it does happen from time to time. So just going back to real basics, we'll start with how the starter motor works. So the original Hillman one is called an inertia starter, and it's got like a Bendix on it here. Can you see the spirals there? So because the motor obviously accelerates to its peak speed in like 0.1 of a second or something, as it does that, this mass gets left behind. So what it does is it throws it up the worm and throws it into mesh. So it like crashes into the gear. So if you look on the end of the ring gear, you'll see it's got a little lead that helps the pinion slide in. We often see them quite badly worn. And on a racer, because what the problem with an inertia starter is, it engages and starts cranking the engine. If the engine fires, of course, the first thing it does is flick it back out again, which I'm sure you'll have heard of Hillman starting many a time with this type of starter on. So obviously in the 80s or whatever, or probably 70s, they came out with something called a pre-engaged starter. So the way this one works is this pops out on a solenoid, and when it pops out, and only when it's at its full extension and the pinion is fully in mesh with the ring gear, does the electrical part connect and it starts to turn, hence the name pre-engaged. It engages and then it turns. So, and it won't stop turning until you turn the key off. So if the engine fires, it still stays engaged. It won't, you know, it just makes them a lot easier to start, especially if you've got like a high compression race engine. So we've got that out of the way. So you can see the original starter motor. This is the actual layout it will be. If the engine was here, gearbox was here, the starter sits like this, it crashes in from this side. So if you look, you can see the flywheel is designed with a shoulder on this side, but it slides on from that side. So where the problems start is when the pre-engaged starter doesn't quite go in properly. Because what happens is, because he's pushing from this side, he's going in this way rather than coming back that way, there's no shoulder on this side. So you get a situation where the ring gear starts to edge its way off the end of the flywheel. Very rare we see it. I've only ever seen one other, but it had other issues, that engine. So I don't know why this has happened to this poor chap, but anyway, it has. So I've looked at it, I've been trying to find a solution, and I've decided what I'm going to do is, you see where I've centre dotted it there? I'm gonna put this flywheel in the 4-jaw chuck, clock it up on the front face, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to face down here to just under that top diameter where the shoulder where it sits, just enough room to give us enough land to sit a little cap head bolt, and I'm going to drill and tap it M6. I'll probably turn this about 5 thou lower than the ring gear, so that when I put the screw in and tighten it, it clamps the ring gear to this side and means that it can never ever come off again. I've also put some Loctite high strength retainer. So the way you get these off is you tap them off cold, and then you clean them up, put them in the oven, get them up to a couple 100 degrees, and then they just drop over the flywheel, and then as they cool down, they contract, and you get the grip then. But I laced this one with Loctite as well, just for double insurance policy. So I'll get this in a lathe now, and I'll drill and tap it, and then we'll see how it looks at the end. Okay, we've been here before, haven't we, where we've clocked things up. So I've clocked this up on the face as a second job. The first job was to get the whole lot going around concentric with the chuck, so we take a nice even amount off. So what I'm looking for here is these 3 M6. Can you see the M6? I've drilled and tapped them already. There's 1, 2, and the third one there. Now what I'm going to do is, that's where the clutch cover sits. I don't want to go too far under the clutch cover, but we'll have to go a little bit to create land for the screw. It'll all become obvious very shortly. Okay, I've had to do a bit of plan B due to a bit of handy blunder. As you can see, I've turned it now, so we've got the this part flush with the ring gear, so we can use the shoulder of the bolt to support the ring gear. However, this is still massively encroaching, and we can't go any further because we'll remove the support for the clutch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the drill, radial drill, and use the spot facing tool to create an area for the bolt to sit. We should be all right then. Should be jobbed. Right, okay, I've took it out of a lathe now, and just what I've done is I've used the spot facing tool to relieve just that area, so we didn't disturb the surface area here for the clutch to sit on. So that's out of the way of the clutch cover, which I'll just pop on now so you can see. So that sits like that. That obviously screws down. We'll put this in properly with some Loctite, but you can see how the head of the bolt covers where the ring gear would have to come past if it wanted to wander off again. So if I put this on here like that, is that right? Yep. So you can see the bolt's in a nice clear area where it's not affected by anything. So we'll call that jobbed. Okay, YouTubers, had an engine come to me here. Lad dropped it off last week, and it's a 930 Imp Sport. So it's got the Strombergs, the oil cooler, the sport exhaust. It's based on the B1 block, so it's got the extra ribs here and the rear oil seal. So it's 930cc. He said it runs beautifully. Had it built some time ago, but it hasn't done a lot of miles. He said it runs absolutely sweet as a nut, but it's got no oil pressure when it's hot. So I said, like, what do you call no oil pressure? He says, like, 10 or 15 psi when I'm driving. So I was like, all right, it's cream crackered that, pal. I said, but we'll have a look at it. So he brought it down, and I said, like, do you want me to fully rebuild it? What do you want me to do? So he says, well, I just want you to fix it. So I said, right, well, what I'll do is I took it apart just to measure the journal on the crank, and it's like 3.5 thou down. So it's just had a bit of an hard time. It may well have, I don't know what the history of it is, but anyway, we're not here to discuss that. I'm just going to put a crankshaft into it. But the best thing about these engines is, what I'm going to go through with you is, if you take the pulley off, take all the bearings out, take the oil pump off, you can slip the crankshaft out without taking the timing cover off. Now, a lot of people argue, say you can't do it, but you can. You just have to tap the oil pump scroll gear along. So there's a scroll here and a gear for the chain. You just tap them along. So anyway, I'm going to start stripping this now, and then I'll show you how the crankshaft comes out without having to get involved taking the timing cover out. Right, luckily Matthew just walked in the workshop and offered to hold the camera because this is a two-man job. So the crankshaft gets to this stage quite easily, and then what we have to do is we have to knock the oil pump drive gear along, and then it's a right tight squeeze on this last bit. It does come, like I did last time. I think we move the chain out of the way, perhaps. Ah, that's it. This chain was in the way. That's it. It comes out that way. So if we watch that again, it comes out through the front gap, can you see? Like that. Great. Right, thanks for doing that for us, Matthew. Right, we've got a good second-hand standard size crankshaft here, and this is the one that's come out of the engine with no oil pressure. So I thought we'd just have a look at it together. So if we measure the middle main on the good standard one, it should read 1 inch 875, which is an inch and 7/8. So can we just zoom in there, my mate? So it's bang on that, yeah. So we'll go back to this one now. We'll do the middle, and we'll see if it's down. Now I can feel that it is down because obviously there's a groove in the middle, so it doesn't wear there. So we just zoom in on this one, and we can see it's down 1/4 down that. So that's no good for it. I think the front's even worse. This one is, oh my good gracious me.
Still zoomed in.
Oh, you zoomed in here. That one is 1 inch 871 and 810. So that's like nearly 4 foul down. So that's why it's been an absolute rattler, or no oil pressure. We'll just check a big end as well. So this is our big end. This should be 1 inch and 5/8, or 1 inch 0.625. So there we are, that's just a smidge on, a couple of tenths under. And this one, I'll have a measure up of. So this one's quite, not dead bad, it's 1 inch 623 and a bit. But I bet if we get it on the thrust face, it'll be a lot worse. Let's just measure it here. Right, so like we discussed in the past, yeah, that's 4 foul down that, because the crank's always been pushed. If we just zoom out a second, mate, it's always been pushed on one side of the rod. Yeah. On the compression, on the firing stroke, they always wear oval. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to fit this. Just give it a last brake cleaner, make sure we've got nothing in the holes. Some tissue. Where's the brake cleaner gone, Matthew? Oh, we'll have to pause, aren't we? No preparation. Okay, so we're just going to make sure that all of the holes are nice and clear. The oil holes. We'll just give the bearings a bit of the crankshaft a bit of a wipe off, and then I'll attempt to lower it into the block. Now this could go horribly wrong. This crank's already been turned for 3 inches. So now I went in through this gap here, then we've got to negotiate the timing chain, and then we spin it round, and what I've got to do now is I've got to tap the scroll back along the crank. So what I'll do is we're just going to tap the scroll gently, the gear back along. Now that the end of the crankshaft's in position, and hopefully we'll be able to hoop the chain round like that. And it should just drop into position. And then we have to put the bearings in afterwards. I just need to go back a tiny bit more on this. We have to put the scroll, not the scroll, the worm, the gear, back home. Is that enough? There we go. Wonderful. So we can give it a bit of a wipe out now, put the bearings in, and we'll be ready to go. Good afternoon, YouTubers. I'm just on the dyno with the engine that we took the crankshaft out without taking the engine apart, because the crank was warm but the bloke was happy with the way it performed. So I'm just going to do a bit of a run with it, a bit of a background. It's a 930 inch Sport, lovely little thing, twin Strombergs, R17 cam. It's got a Carter cam cover, which isn't actually from the engine, but it does finish it off nicely. So, done a few heat cycles now, and yeah, it's lovely, runs sweet. They're not really smooth. I like Strombergs because for a road car, if we drop it right down to say 1500 RPM and go wide open, just pulls through. No flat spot, no waiting for the airspeed to get up so it can get some fuel. The trade-off, of course, is they don't have big horsepower. This is doing like 70 horsepower at 6,000. But it's, you know, it is what it is. It's a road engine. Got to remember that it's not a racer. So I'm just doing this little run purely. I mean, I just wanted to check the oil pressure would be correct and there's no other issues with the engine. But just for you guys, really. Just so if you've got a 930 inch Sport with an R17 cam on, twin inch and a quarter Strombergs, you know roughly what you've got power-wise. So it's on a standard head, this. Now you might see some little clouds of steam coming from the header tank. That's because we're running a thermostat and we aren't running the bypass circuit. So when the stat opens, you'll see the hot water go around. But 4,000 there, he's got 60 foot-pound. That'll be nice in the car. Anyway, there's no point revving it because, well, we can give it a little rev. It doesn't do anything. It's just the same sort. We'll get a horsepower figure, that's an idea, isn't it? So, just back it up a little bit. Get a 6,000 figure. So 6,000, it's got roughly 55, 57 foot-pound. So if we get my calculator, is this even going to work? Probably not because it's too dark in here. I'll put the lights on and we'll do a little calculation together. So, no, that's fine there, isn't it? Right, so if we say, did I say it had 55 foot-pound multiplied by, was that 6,000 equals that, divided by 5252 equals 62.8. Should we round it to 65 horsepower? No, 62.8. I don't know what the air is today, probably not very good because it's still raining. But yeah, nice little job done that. We'll get it in the out tray and the customer can come and pick it up. Right, we've got another engine arrived in for a bit of work to be done on it, and we're not quite sure what's up with it, but it's a bit of a knock who's there. So I'll introduce you guys to Dom and Dom's dad. This is Dom Smith, the registrar for the young impers, aren't you?
Not anymore, unfortunately, Andy. No,
oh, aren't you?
I was for quite a while, but not anymore.
Ah,
no,
right, okay.
But that's what everyone knows me as. So.
Ah, right, fair enough. And everyone knows your dad as Dom's dad. He hasn't got his own name, no?
No,
we just call him Dom's dad.
Dom's dad.
Cool, mate. Before we go any further, I just wanted to say, I'm going to zoom in. That is a smashing t-shirt you've got there, mate. Well done. Can I have a look at the back? Oh, it's not the length of your stroke that's important. It's they've banned that now. Yeah, it's banned. We had to ban it. I had yeah, it's that could be worth good money in the future.
Oh, I'm never gonna.
Yeah, don't wash it.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna keep it clean.
Yeah, we've gone for nicer versions now. Just say things like weight is the enemy of speed and torque is for race cars.
I can do what with weight is the enemy.
Mate, don't worry. When we've 9980'd your engine, you'll have plenty of power to get you around. Right, what we're going to do, thanks for the intro, guys. We're going to pull it apart and see what we see, and then we'll make a plan on what to do with it. All right?
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Right, we thought we'd do a bit of an update on the Dom's dad engine. And, yeah, looks like it's been running quite well, doesn't it? Do you want to give us a bit of an insight as to what happened? You were on the Wicked Welsh weekend?
No, it was the full English.
Oh, full English.
And I must admit, we really put it under some load because Sean and I were in the car and we were chasing Leslie.
Are you both twiglets, are you?
We're both very small, but weight is the killer. That's the answer.
So, obviously, we weren't doing like 9,000 RPM. We were just cruising.
We were tootling along and it started banging.
Banging.
Bang.
I like that technical term. Bang, bang, bang.
And then after about a mile, we thought, no. So we turned round and we got about a quarter of a mile back. And then the banging stopped.
Oh.
In fact, the whole thing stopped.
Oh, right. Oh, it ended its time.
It ended, yes.
Right, okay. So
nothing seemed to seize or...
Is it in an AA van?
Yes.
That's ironic, isn't it?
So yes, David Oakes' car came out with Dom driving it to come and save the AA.
You can't beat the Hillman Club for friendly faces.
Oh, no.
Everyone bails in, don't
Cheers,
they?
David.
Brilliant. Right, so we took the head off, and it looks like it's been sealing really well. Now, I believe you did the head gasket on this, you guys, a few years ago.
We did.
You know, superb job there, lads. They've got a nice, clean firing. Little bit. It's just that, you know, it's shown its time, but it looks like it's been sealing well. So the only thing that's obvious from these pictures, or this view here, is we can see we've had a bit of contact, which means that the last 3 cylinders weren't in time with the first one, which brings us to the next bit, which is we seem to have an issue in here whereby number 1 cylinder doesn't appear to be attached to the rest. So I think you already had diagnosed it as being a broken crankshaft done. Yeah, I'm
Good work, Dad.
I'm going to concur. I learned that off a film, that word.
It's never happened on one of my BMW engines, Andy.
Oh, you had to get that in, didn't you? Oh, mate. Oh, it'll come, don't worry. Right, so we'll get the sump off now and we'll have a look. I'm quite intrigued as to see why this has happened. I'm really excited, this is how weird I am, as to whether it's got an undersized crank and if it's got the correct radius in the corner and if it's broken from there. That'll be my little exciting bit for me. Right, chaps, the problem has become obvious. Let's have a little peep inside here. I'll just get the torch so you can see. So it looks like it's broken from the end of, well, the start of number 1 big end journal. The rest of the crank looks good, and I don't think it's took the block, to be honest, guys. It looks like this is all it goes up and down a bit, but it feels like the block might be a survivor, you know. I don't like scrapping these things. So we'll get the crank out and we'll have a look and we'll see where we think the crack propagated from. Right, we've got the crankshaft out of the engine. Dom's very kindly offered to hold it up so that we can have a look and see what we can work out what's happened. So, looking at the crankshaft, now I'm no like metallurgy expert, but I would say that it broke here probably some time ago, and it's been having a little shuffle, and that's why we've got a bit of a polishing. And then the last part it snapped off was there. So we'll look at this part as well, thanks Dom. You can see it started here, it's rattled across, and then it'll have had a right old shake on by the time it got to this point, and it's broken. Now, we don't ever see imp cranks broken unless there's a reason, because imp cranks are generally, we run them all year to 85, and they're no problem. So you've just been cruising on the road.
Yep.
So there must have either been a flaw in the material when it was forged, because these are forged steels, you know, proper, I think they're EN8, or this is actually, we've measured it and it's had a grind. What I'm trying to show you is, if I zoom in, can you see let me get something to point. If we look, when it's had a grind, they've run the grinding reel right up to there, and it's almost got a ledge. You see where I'm hitting it there, and it won't go past. So if you've got a microscope on that would be a sharp corner where the grinding wheel has reground it to 10 thou. Now, if we look, this here is an imp crankshaft that I've just got a standard one, and I thought we'd look at that. So if I zoom in there and get my screwdriver, you can see it just flows lovely. The radius is absolutely smooth as silk, and that's because obviously when they were ground from the factory, they understood the reasons why you had to have the radius very, very nice and flowing. So that'll be a stress raiser, and I suspect that that's why the crankshaft snapped. This is just bad luck for you guys, but the good bit is we were just going to turn this into a box of parts and basically do a new engine, but because, and sorry, near say name there, sorry, because Dom's dad, sorry, I didn't give your name away, don't worry. Because Dom's dad's obviously got a bit of engineering here, he's just heard the knock and he started cruising. So the front mains cap, you know, apart from the bearings had a bit of an hard time, obviously because it's all gone out of plonk, but it's all sound. So what we're going to do is, as the engine ran perfectly okay, we're just going to slip a crankshaft into him with some bearings, and a couple of seals, and run it up, and then oh bloody Nora, mate, that was awful.
I can't resist,
mate. I don't know what was worse, that or I'm going to do a zoom in, mate. That tash is sick, mate. Honestly,
can I do a pull for the charity?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. You crack on,
I hope
mate.
you don't mind. So I'm raising money for a charity called the Speed of Sight, and the guy that started this Speed of Sight charity is called the fastest blind man alive.
Wow.
And he actually holds a number of land speed records. I don't know how many, but he's blind from birth, and he holds a number of land speed records. So he started this charity called the Speed of Sight that allow blind and partially sighted people to have a go around a racetrack in a car. And I wouldn't want to be the instructor, I must admit, sounds pretty petrifying, but they've got cars with 2 steering wheels and 2 sets of pedals and whatever else. I'm working with a kit car company called Mev Kit Cars, and we're building them another car, which is great. So I'm raising money this year. Hopefully Andy's going to put the link to the GoFundMe page in his description.
Yeah,
and,
can do. Yeah.
Yeah. So
send me it on your phone.
I will. Thanks, mate.
For next Friday.
Unfortunately, my missus has got to put up with this for another 2-3 weeks.
Oh,
so,
mate, I bet that tickles.
Thank you, Andy.
Right, brilliant. Good cause, mate. Well done. Good for you.
Cheers.
Just putting Dom's dad's engine back together, and I nearly got myself a bit caught out there. I was getting a bit cocky with the job. Obviously, we're not rebuilding it. We're just putting a crankshaft in because the old one was broken. So I've put a replacement crank in, standard size one that's not been ground, and it turns beautifully. I'm really happy with all that. I'm giving the block a bit of a clean and the head, and I was just going to literally waz the head on, and I remembered that there was some contact marks. You can just see them there, because when the crankshaft broke, obviously the last 3 cylinders weren't in time with the crankshaft, so the chain's on the front. So number 1 was fine, number 2, 3 and 4, obviously number 4's had a bit of a whack there, and I thought, oh, I'll just double check with the old torch, make sure we've got no valve issues. And sure enough, put the torch there, you can see the valve is bent like a banana. The rest seem okay, but I'll check them anyway. So yeah, that's what happens when you get cocky. I was getting cocky with the job, thinking, oh, I'll just throw the head back on this, we'll have a tune out of it tomorrow. Anyway, we'll remove that valve now and replace it with a new one. Morning, YouTubers. This is the engine on dyno now that we just put the crankshaft in because it had snapped. Dom's dad's engine, basically. What's happened is he brought it, as you mentioned earlier on in the video, that for a kit of bits towards a new 998, and they said, look, you know, I don't think there's a lot wrong with it other than a snap crankshaft, let's just put a crank in it. So I put a crank in it, and it did turn out, as you've seen, to have 1 bent exhaust valve as well, so we sorted that out. And I've run it up with a dyno. Obviously it didn't come with any carburetors because he wasn't bringing it to be rebuilt, so I've just put my spare set of Swim 40 DCOE Webbers on it, and thought we'll just get a tune out of it with them and see what it does. So I've set it pretty safe with some jets and some 30mm chokes, etc. And it runs real sweet. I'm really happy with it. It's lovely. Now, just to go over the spec again, this one is quite simply a 930, but it's done from an 875 block, so it's a standard in block board to set the 70mm, and then it's had the 930 pistons and rods in it. It's got an Imp Sport head that's standard with an Imp Sport cam that's also all sport spec. And there goes the door. Sorry about that, Mr. Postman at the door. Right, so it's an 875 board, 70mm makes it 930cc, sport head, sport cam, but obviously it's got these carburetors on it now. The other engine that I've dynoed this week, which was, we'll put that one on first, so this will be the second one you've seen. It was a 930 in a 930 block, sport head, but with an R17 cam and a pair of 1.25" Strombergs on. So this engine's like the opposite way around to that one. So the other engine would have had good area with the cam, because it had the R17 cam, but it couldn't get any air because it had a pair of Strombergs on it. And this one has got no area because it's on a sport cam and massive carburetors with big ports, or not big ports, bigger inlet manifolds. So both engines are arse about face, so to speak. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see how they perform. This one will perform better than the one with the R17 cam and the Strombergs, purely because it's on a single choke per cylinder. So it really helps an engine when it doesn't have the interruption of the cylinder next door robbing its air, and we get a lot of reversion in manifolds on Strombos, especially with a high overlap cam. Anyway, I'll stop waffling. We'll put a bit of load on. Oh. It picks up quite well actually, considering it's on a sport cam and it's only 930cc. We'll wind it open at 5 there. It's holding about 60 foot-pounds. It's alright, isn't it? Take it to won't go past 7, non-standard rods and bolts. Yeah, it's falling off there, but you know what? For a sport cam, crikey. I think we saw about, what did we see there? Let's go back again. That was shocking. We see about 60 foot-pound. 55 at 7, that's the thermostat opening, by the way, in case you wonder why we get a bit of steam out the other tank. So 50 foot-pound at 7, let me just tell you that is 55 foot-pound, sorry, multiplied by 7, 1, 2, 3, equals that, divided by 5252. 73 horsepower, wow, from a sport cam as well. So yeah, interesting. We'll breathing a bit. It's not a new engine, it's just an old runner. So this will do them proud now. Good recovery for an old scrap engine now. I'll take it off a dyno and we'll get on with the next job. I was also going to say, I've got this oil pump here. I'm doing this, believe it or not, I'm doing a CVH for my pal. He's got an XR2. I said I'll just do the bottom end for you, put some pistons in it, etc. So it's down there actually for boring, that one. But I thought what we'll do is a before and after, just to show you how good this machine is, this aqua blaster. So absolutely belting machine. This should come up really nice. I've degreased it all, so I'll get in the blaster next and we'll see what it comes out like. Okay YouTubers, I'm just doing a bit of machining and I thought I could make a video, a bit of a supplement video to the one I've done previously about the dry liner, wet liner job. So this is a standard 875 Hillman Int block, which I am machining to make it take the dry liners. This is how I do them now, as a top hat liner. So you can see that's the standard bore, and that's when we finish it. I have my little tools lined up here. I have like a rough cut tool, which I take all the material out with, and the liner. That incidentally is the remains of the casting liner. They're ribbed so they never move, they're a great liner. That's the standard 875 68mm bore. Anyway, this is now going to have the top hat liners glued in, and the difference between this is how I do them now, and I had a block here which had to have the liners out because it's an old one, and when we get an old one, well, you see the glue, that's the Loctite that holds the liner in the bottom of here. It tends to go off a bit, and we sometimes get a situation where the water drips from the coolant jacket here down, finds its way down the side of the liner. So whenever I rebuild one of these engines now, I always start by pushing the liners out, get the block in the blaster, get it all nice and clean, and then we'll re-glue the liners in, so that what I will be doing is, this is 72.5 998. I use the Mark Maynard pistons, the 73mm, so plus 20 thou, plus half a mil, and then we'll bore them once it's glued in, so we get a perfectly round hole. Now you can see straight away the difference. This is obviously the wet liner job. The liner is in contact with the water, and this is the dry liner job, where the liner is in contact with the aluminium that was originally in the block. Now, in my opinion, this is far superior because of expansion reasons, which I've been into in the past, but also there's a lot more of the block left. And the only reason I can think they didn't do this design or that design back in the day, and this incidentally, just out of interest, is actually a George Bevan block. So just spotted them numbers when the customer was with me the other day. So the only reason they didn't do it back in the day, I don't think, is they didn't have the glues. We have modern glues now which are really good at taking the heat from the iron dry liner into the parent liner and then into the water jacket. So we've got, with the modern glues, we can do it this way, whereas I think back then they needed the liners to be in contact with the water, hence why it's called a wet liner block. So a little bit of an insight there as to why we do what we do with the blocks. Obviously, you can see there's not a great deal left of the block, especially above where the middle main is there. So yeah, it works, so you know, can't fault it. Works a treat, the wet liner job. Many of my race engines are wet liner, absolutely no problem whatsoever. Right, YouTubers, it's the end of another week, Friday afternoon. Can't believe it's gone so fast. Just thought I'd go through a few bits just to finish off this week's video. This is the CVH oil pump that we saw before I blasted it, so that's made a lovely job of that. That'll be we'll build that up next week, and that can go on Gary's CVH for his XR2. He's also an imp owner, that's why I deal with him. But anyway, these are my drive shafts, my 3/4 inch ones, which I've just given them a lick of paint so we can put a white line on them, and decided to twist on the test next week. This is a gearbox I've just blasted for a chap who I think he's going to send it to Dave Whedon to get it built. And this is the best bit, my exciting bit, which is I've been under some pressure for some time now to create a cam cover, you know, similar to the Ian Carter job or my own casting. And I have priced it up, but because the billet of aluminium is like so expensive, by the time you've had it all chewed out on a CNC, we're into like 500-600 quid cost to me to do like a cam cover. So I thought, why are we reinventing it? The original cam cover is absolutely awesome. It's a, you know, it's low pressure die casting. It's got no weight in it. They don't crack, they don't fail, they're good as gold. So what I thought I'd do, I spoke to my pal Stuart Carter at Rodwell Engineering down in Weymouth, and I said, if I machine the 2 ribs off here, which are just, I suppose that's for strength for the fuel pump, but obviously we don't run a fuel pump, we've got a good square area there. Do you think if I gave you the PDF for the Shrigley Engineering sticker, you could machine it with a nice cutter, just a couple of mil deep? It's about, I reckon it's about 4 mil this. And then we can paint them black and leave it silver in the bottom. I think it'll look really smart. Obviously, I've just roughed that with a soft pad and a grinder. We can make it a lot better before. But this is just a posting so we can do a test. So hopefully I'll be able to offer my customers a nice, tidy cam cover to go with their engines now. Right, well, thanks for watching. And the last part of the video is going to be all about my favourite part of the week, which is Saturday night with the boys at Bradford. We're going to go and watch the F1 stock cars. I'm going for Jack France, first heat.
I'm going for Tom Wells.
Not very sure, are you? Frank's not in this one. Luggy, who are you going for? Who's going to win? Paul Harrison? Yeah. Paul Harrison. Right, chaps, I know I bang on about it a lot, but this is White City, the entrance of. I came here as a kid. Unfortunately, now it's a retail park. There used to be turnstiles here, I can hear them clicking. So this is why I bang on about the stock cars. Go out and watch them. Take your butties if you've got no money and support them, because without your support, this is what it'll all end up like. We've lost Bellevue, Stoke, obviously White City a long time ago when I was a kid, but that's all that remains. So please go and support your stock cars or we'll lose them eventually.